Hey everybody, time for round 2 of random Windrose tips. I'm Benny, and I hope you'll find something useful here. We've got more ship docking fun, we've got NPC crafters, and a bunch more, as well as a bonus at the end having to do with trees respawning. This first one I haven't seen mentioned, but I find it super useful for crafting, and even a couple people asking, like, how do you, select the max number of items? So we're going to come down here to the workbench, and if we look, let's do coarse fabric. So I have the ability to make 603 coarse fabric. Well, you could do it like this. You could enter your number in there, and that does work. If you get 9999, it's going to jump to the max, right? But there's an even easier way to do all that. So I'm going to come in here and zero this out. All you have to do when you come in here is, if you look here, you'll have an arrow that points both directions. Click and hold, and then drag to the right. That's all there is to it. Drag to the left to put it back down, drag to the right, or let's say you just want to get, I just want a few. So I'm just going to drag a little bit to the right and go ahead and hit craft, and I'm going to go out. Why not? And boom, got some coarse fabric. These next tips were suggested by you, the viewers. And the first one of those has to do with caves and ore nodes. There's actually going to be 3 parts to this. And the first tip is going to be that you can put torches in mines for lighting, and it's much cheaper than, or much easier anyway, more convenient than refilling a lantern. I haven't carried a lantern in ages in this game. The game is so brightly lit for the most part outside anyway. And then once you get into caves, you can just, for the cost of 2 wood, throw down these standing torches. You don't need a bonfire or anything like that to put these things down. You're fine. Go ahead and throw up some torches, throw them everywhere. They also do not block the respawning of ore. Ores do not care if you leave building pieces in place. You do not need to remove your torches, your baskets, your staircases, or any of that stuff. It is all, this stuff is all going to respawn regardless. So the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and mine some of this out so you can see. Here's my basket and my torch. Next is, feel free to build stairs inside here and also leave the stairs. The ore doesn't care. It's going to form right around your stairs. So you can, this is not my best work in putting up stairs, but you get the point. I can come up here and I can use my stairs. They did not block any of the respawning of that rock there, or ores when you find ores. It doesn't matter. And the third part to this is put some chests right near the entrance. In fact, you can scatter them around. You say, I've got some over there, I've got some over there. So when I'm coming through here, I can just quickly come in here and sort these out. And I'm doing that because I already had a few in here. And then all I got to do is hit Q in this case. You might have bound it differently than that. But I can come over here and I can quick deposit. Once these are full, then I can start making those trips back and forth. Go ahead and clear my inventory for it, or whatever you need to do. For our next tip, we're going to go right outside the cave. Now you notice I've got an area cleared out here. That's from building baskets and stairs and all that kind of stuff. I just, chopped down the local foliage. So one thing that can be helpful, not so much a big deal in this particular spot, but in a lot of spots where you're going to want to go down into a cave or outside of a area that you're going to farm, is keeping down the wildlife in those areas so that you can concentrate on what's inside. So what you're going to do is you want to build a bonfire. A bonfire is going to prevent respawning. Now, you need to be careful because a bonfire will prevent respawning of gunpowder caches or any of the other food ingredient caches or anything like that. It prevents clay respawning. It supposedly has no effect on ore respawning, but what I like to do is just go ahead and watch that lines here. I'm going to go ahead and put it right here. This area here now will remain free of wildlife. So I've got this entrance figure out here. I can come out here. I can have baskets out here to put ore down. It's useful in a lot of different spots, especially once you get into the foothills where there's a lot more aggressive animals that are going to be right there outside of a POI when you get out of it. And you can use that to block them from respawning in that area around the bonfire. This next tip has to do with having a clear space to fight when you're too far from the beach. Now, a lot of times if you run this far to the beach, and especially if you've got a quest going where you have to kill a bunch of guys, you need to find a way to fight on open ground without being able to take them to the beach. This is going to be especially important in the foothills. There is tons of brush in the foothills, and it's often a issue there where you're trying to find a safe space to be. So one thing you can do is first you want to go through and clear the trees. Take down the stumps as well. And then once you've got your trees clear, go ahead and switch to your shovel and put it on flatten. Now, there's a bunch of different reasons to use this, not just for this reason, but all you gotta do is flatten the ground, and it's gonna remove objects around you. Now, the first time you use it, it is going to drop plant fiber, but if you use it a second time, you can actually destroy objects. So if you got a bunch of crap you want to get rid of, go ahead and throw it on the ground and then hit the shovel to flatten the ground, and it'll destroy those objects. All right, so I've used that to clear a space, gotten rid of all of the vegetation that could be in my way. Next, if you run out of daylight, go ahead and throw some torches up. Throw them far enough out so they're not replacing the objects you just got rid of. I think I'm also go ahead and get rid of just this last little tree here. There we go. Now I've got a nice clear space to fight, and I've got an opening here. And I can go ahead and fight multiple opponents if I need to. And there we go. Nice open spot to fight. Going to get me some gunpowder. Next, we're going to talk about NPC Hirelings. Darren Cox asks, tips on how NPCs work that you can hire to do various jobs would be helpful. That doesn't seem clear. No, it's not all that clear. No, not at first at least. But it is pretty simple once we get the hang of it here. We're going to go ahead and head over to Tortuga, because I know there's an example standing right there. If it'll let me. There we go. You get too many icons stacked on top of each other, it can be kind of hard to sort them out. Now, I already have all the hirelings hired, so I won't be able to do this again. What you would do is you come over and you talk to her, and it would give an option here to see her stats, where you can actually see what her benefits are going to be and all that, and hire her, and that would be 500 silver to hire her. Once you've got her hired, you're going to go ahead and head back to your camp. Once you're back at camp, you're going to head over to the appropriate table that matches your hireling. Now, as you can see, she's already standing right there, but we're going to go ahead and dismiss her. Now, the reason my NPCs are not wandering around and generally doing animated things that makes them interesting is because the ceiling on my crafting room is too low. Yeah, it was a mistake in the initial construction, and now nobody in my group wants to take the time to tear it all apart yet. I know somebody's going to do it soon. We're all pretty sick of it. You see the beams even cross right into the door. So this needed to be another half, or another square like this square here taller, and then the NPCs would wander around. Right now they're stuck on the ceiling. I know it doesn't look like it, but they're stuck on the ceiling. So what you want to do is go ahead and go to the table, select worker, choose the worker, and it's only going to be one per table right now, but obviously there's plans to add more. And you're going to see that this is what she's doing for us, doubling the clay bottle production and a 30% chance to craft extra elixirs. I'm going to assign her to the table. Now, the confusing part here is whether she's doing anything, and she's not. She's going to wander around. She's going to have some animations where she's like, playing with the different workbenches, not even just her own, but any of the workbenches, and doing various things around camp, including going and sleeping in the beds and all that good stuff. So it is really cool to have them wandering around. It's broken on my particular server here. My solo game, they look great. Anyway, whether or not she's doing anything, when you come over to craft here, you are going to get 2 times the clay bottles per use, and you can see up here where it says this recipe has been improved by a worker, doubles clay bottle production. So that's the first thing, and then the 30% chance to craft an extra elixir. So now, I've heard people talking about you need to assign them at the bonfire. You do not. The bonfire workers will tell you that there are workers here and that they're assigned or not assigned, but you can't actually assign them or do anything with them from this interface. You have to go to the table that they're assigned to in order to add them to that table. Now, if you're playing with group members, you might notice that some of these are gray. The ones that are gray mean that your group member assigned those characters instead of you. So green are yours, gray are somebody else's. This next tip comes to us courtesy of Gravidar, who commented, your ship will always spawn in the same spot relative to the bell when you first fast travel. Build the pier out to your ship once you're not going to move the bell, and it'll be docked every time you get home. So this is a really interesting one, and I had to play around with it a little bit. He's right. If I were to, so right now I just fast traveled these 2 ships in here, and if I was going to build in this location, which I'm not, this is just a little temporary base my group built a long time ago. It's not really in use much anymore. But if I were to take this dock and I would just say split it off this way and go right alongside the ship there, then the next time that I came in here, that's where it would appear. So I'd be, put my dock out there, and every time I came back in here, I fast traveled in here, it would, with the ship would end up back in the port. Now I've already done this. I've done this on our main base, my group's main base, and I did it so that I could dock up to 5 ships. Because the second ship isn't going to come in the same space, it's going to come in a different space. So you can just keep repeating this process of bring a ship in, and then bring another ship in, and then bring another. So anyway, we're going to go here and we're going to take a look. I'm going to head to our main base. So I fast traveled using the ship, and you'll notice there's the ship, all docked and ready to go. Let's go ahead and see what happens when we bring in the second ship. So if I hadn't already built docks all over the place, that second ship would just appear out in the water, and then you build a dock to that. And go here, and let's bring this one in. There we go. And that one's docked over here, right up where we want it. And here's a quick shot of what it looks like when we had a whole bunch of ships docked here at the same time. Every one of these just traveled in here, and that's how they ended up. Quick note here, you may have noticed I don't use mid-roll ads in my videos. If you appreciate that, you can help me out by clicking the like and subscribe buttons. Those 2 actions really help offset the ad revenue by helping the channel get in front of a wider audience. I really appreciate it. Thanks. Our next tip is getting to your flagship's inventory. So, my flagship's way down there, right? And I'm sure most of you already know this, but I thought it worth pointing out since I've run into a couple people that didn't. You don't need to go to your ship to get stuff off of it. You're just going to hit tab. As long as your ship is, in the vicinity, hit tab, go flagship, and you can access all of your stuff. I can put this bell back in here, and so forth. So when you're at Tortuga and you forgot to get your stuff off the ship, don't worry. Even if your ship's not there, you can actually from right inside the town, you could call your ship and then access it through your inventory without ever having to go out to the dock. All right, our next tip comes from, I'm just going to put it up on the screen there. And they say, another handy tip is if you want to gather resources to build a few things when you go to a new location, build them all first in your base and then deconstruct them. The materials will end up in your inventory and you'll have exactly what you need. This is a great tip. It's worked in a few other games before too, but basically I'm going to go and I'm going to set up a new base or any kind of thing like that. All I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get into my build menu and grab some things I want. So I'm going to say, like, what if I want some torches? And, oh, yeah, and here, let's see. We'll look at my inventory. I don't have any building materials in my inventory. And let's see, what else am I going to do here? Let's say I want a tent when I get there. With fast travel, you probably really don't worry about it. I don't have... my limit's reached on bells right now, but I would put down a bell and maybe workbench, and whatever else I want to put together, you know. There we go. Now I got the basics of a mining outpost here, right? Maybe even some decent chests. There we go. Right, so I've got all this stuff laid out. This is the stuff I'm going to need for my new camp. I'm going to go ahead and now I'm going to deconstruct everything. I'm going to open up my inventory, and here's everything I need to build those exact items that I had sitting there on the beach. And all I had to do is go to my new location, and I'll have all the materials I need for that. Now I'd like to cover a few corrections and bits of information that we got from after the last video. First one I'd like to address is Ian Martin Adams says, correction for future videos, the island locations are random, but the islands are not. So what he's talking about is, if I'll pull up the map here. So we'll look at our starting island here. What I had thought was that these POIs were random. They're not. They are static. These are the positions they're going to be in compared to the island. What does change is the island's location on the map in general, and to an extent the shape of the island. It's still going to be in the same basic shape, but because the topography of the island can change, that's random. These hills and everything like that, that can all shift and be in different spots, and as a result of that, the coastline actually changes. So this could be an island. One of my other games, this is completely water through here, so this is a separate island. The same with some of these other ones. You can have some of these can be just separated, or you can have a little bit more bulge in it. So the outline of the island is going to change to an extent. If you were to put them all on top of each other, though, you would see that they're all basically the same island, just with a slight variation. Next, DeLindsay says, just so everyone is aware, this method, and the method he's referring to is the method of when you put items or something into a chest for somebody else to pick up. So in this case, if I go in here and I look at my weapons, my teammates can come in here, they can grab these, put it in their inventory, and put it back, and now they've learned the recipe to this. That does not work, apparently, with the plague weapons. I know it doesn't work with the plague pistol. I didn't get a chance to check everything else, and I've heard that maybe the plague pistol is somehow bugged. I don't know if that's the case. And then the other thing is that once you've ascended something, you can't learn the recipe from it. So these items here, the items, my items here are ascended. So if I were to put that down and somebody picked it up, they could not learn the recipe because it's no longer the same item. I guess basically the way to look at it. Now, another thing that was pretty common in the comments in the last one was I had made a comment about not being sure which side was port on a ship, and you all really came out to help me with that. I learned a lot about not only ways to remember which side is port, and I'll put a few of them up on the screen here. These are just the first few that came through. Sue says, what my dad, who built sailboats and sailing ships, taught me to help me remember was, when I was very young, port is 4 letters, and so is left. Starboard is more than 4, so is right. And that seems to be like the consensus, is that that's the best way to remember it. But there was plenty of others that were great, and it's just it was amazing. I learned a lot about entomology of the port and starboard, as well as some history on sailing ships and that kind of thing. So if you're interested, it's a really interesting comment section. If you want to head over to the previous video, there's going to be a link at the end of here, and check out all the comments there. There's some good stuff in there. Another common thread in the comments last time was referring to a comment I made about trees respawning. So I've done some experimentation afterwards, and I'd like to point a few things out. So this hill has been clear cut since before the game released for early access. I did have a media copy of this game, along with this server was set up before the game even launched. So these trees have been clear cut since before the game launched. None of them have come back. It's just as empty as it ever has been. There was a couple stray trees here that were missed during the original cut. I did go back and look at my backup copy of this particular world, and yeah, they weren't there. Or those trees were left there from the beginning, so they didn't respawn. It doesn't appear that any of the trees respawn, and there was a couple stumps in here, didn't come back from the stumps. There was large areas where there were no stumps, And there was still some saplings and everything like that, like this guy up in here, that were there that did not respawn. So coconut trees, the palm trees, and the ficus trees. I checked all 3 of those. I have several experiments running still where I've left all the stumps and everything else, and they just don't come back. I think it's a possibility that some of you might have seen something come back if there was something that happened that caused some kind of minor reset, but I'm guessing it was a bug, especially since we do know that the devs have said that the trees do not respawn. We already have that. We know that. Let's move on from the regular wood trees and talk about divvy trees, which I know for a fact do respawn. I've done testing with it. It does not matter whether you leave the stump or not. If you leave a stump, it'll just disappear when the trees respawn. If you take the stumps, that doesn't matter. They still respawn. It does respawn less trees than the original grove, it seems like. All of the ones that kept respawning on me were just a smaller amount of trees. And at one point, I did see them respawn after 2 hours. I don't know if that was some kind of bug or if it was because either myself or somebody else had already harvested one of those trees or something that caused the timer to be set up earlier. But it seems like the timer is probably 6 hours on those. And every time I try to run experiments, something got goofed up. So if you have any tips or tricks of your own, feel free to drop those down in the comments below. I'm always happy to read them, and we'll see if we can't get some of those into the next video. Also, if you haven't seen the first video, feel free to pop over to that. I'm going to put the link to that at the end of this video here. Don't forget to like and subscribe if I've earned it. Thanks to all my channel members for your support. If you're interested in having your own Windrose server, you can use my link in the description for 10% off server rental through Gportal. I do earn a small commission, which helps the channel. Until next time, I hope you all have a wonderful day. Thanks for watching. Benny out.